We're talking about goal setting today, and goals are meant to be set, but they're meant to be get. So we're setting goals to get the goals because we're in the business of saving lives, and we're growing our businesses because the lives in the community depend on us to grow our businesses. That's what we're about ultimately.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
Welcome to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. I'm Dr. Pete Camiolo.
And I'm Dr. Stephen Franson.
And Dr. Stephen Franson has his pencil out. You know what that means, folks. We are drawing pictures and infographics, and you are in the right place if you're tuned in. Hey, welcome to the episode. We are always drawing pictures, making infographics, trying to hold it up to the screen. Nobody can really see it. So we've been
if you're on YouTube, you can see us, right? On YouTube, you can see us for
Sometimes
sure.
on YouTube, you can see it, but you got to have the right lighting. So no, we've been turning all these graphics into infographics, and we've been setting them out. It's been really cool to see those getting distributed, and everybody kind of using those and being energized by those. And so we hope that this podcast has been a tremendous value to you. If it has, and you have not left us a 5-star review or a testimonial, hey, we would love if you would do that.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Let's do that, and share the show.
Share the show, exactly. Share the show with a colleague. Hey, if you're listening to this as well, this is, we're in fourth quarter 2022. A lot of docs, a lot of business owners at this point in the year are really kind of thinking, man, I had an original goal what I set out to hit by the end of this year. Where are you at in relationship to your original goals when you started in 2022? What was your goals? Some docs, right now they're like, man, we totally smashed our goals. We're ahead of target on a lot of the key things. Some are like, man, we're going to, if we can make it, we're going to slide in and barely hit our goals. Some are like, we are far from it. Hey, listen, we understand how this works. We're in it with you. We totally get it. But I'll tell you what, this podcast is meant to be a resource for you and for our profession. So please share it with a colleague. We'd love to help them grow their practice to the next level, do it in a more remarkable way. So again, in all seriousness, please share this with a colleague. Even this episode specifically, I know is going to go a long way. We're talking about goal setting today, and goals are meant to be set, but they're meant to be get. So we're setting goals to get the goals because we're in the business of saving lives, and we're growing our businesses because the lives in the community depend on us to grow our businesses. That's what we're about ultimately. So don't get caught up in the numbers today. Remember the heart behind this. Dr. Stephen, really pumped to dig deep with you on goal setting for 2023.
Love this conversation. We're all visionaries, right? Listening to this. If the Remarkable CEO Podcast resonates with you, we know a few things about you. One of them is that you're a visionary, right? So you are that person on your team, that the village is following, right? You're the person that says, this is what tomorrow looks like. This is where we're going. We have a better tomorrow, right? And you're painting a picture that everybody can see, and you're going to need them to see it because you're going to have to recruit them to help you build it. Otherwise, you have a job, right? So, and this isn't about creating a job. This is about creating a business, and it's the business that's going to support your remarkable life, not compete with it, right? That's our promise to you. So yeah, I love this conversation. This time of year, we're talking about goal setting, right? So everybody talks about goal setting, but we're going to talk to you about how to set goals. So meaningful goals and real goals that will be accurate, and they'll be purposeful, they'll be possible, and they'll be profitable, right? So ultimately, you are casting a vision for your team, and there's three parts to good vision casting, which we'll get into, and I'm sure in a couple of episodes here as we get ready for the now to next conversation for 2023. The 3 parts to great vision casting is you got to be able to tell a story that is compelling, that people can close their eyes and they see a movie when you're talking, and they can see what a better tomorrow looks like. They can see that it's worthwhile work, right? And it has to exist. They have to see that it's aligned with your purpose, and it's got to resonate with them. It's got to be aligned with their core values, and they got to buy into that vision story because it's going to take everything you got to go there, right? So that story has got to be compelling. It's got to compel the right people to join you, and it's got to repel the wrong people. Get out of the raft, right? So get off the raft, get out of the boat, right? So if you're not with me, we don't need you in this boat, right? So it's hard enough when everybody's fully aligned, knows where we're going, oars in the water, pulling as hard as they can, right? So we don't need anybody sandbagging. right? And then we set quantifiable milestones so we know we're on track on the way. They're called goals, right? So we have our data, right? So we have our metrics, our KPIs, and we set goals so that we can objectively assess, are we on track or off track as we go, right? So today's conversation around setting those goals and make sure that they're set right. And then the third piece of this is having an infographic that conveys all of this information. It goes back to the cave drawings that told a story and conveyed a lot of complex information in a very simple way where the human mind can see it, take a snapshot in your mind, and it conveys that story. So Dr. Pete, this conversation today is about goal setting. I love it. I love the concept of goal getting. We're going to set them to get them, right? Yep. So, and we're going to make sure that we have super clear targets for everybody on our team because fuzzy targets don't get hit.
One of my favorite things to do, Doc, even in my life, is smashing goals. I love that. It's one of my favorite things. It's a highlight. So we are very interested in helping you do that. So one thing as we start is we start with assessing. So we're going to be talking about the 2023 goals. So Dr. Stephen, the place we need to start is looking at the performance that we have had. Okay, so we're going to start by assessing what the numbers have been. So again, if you're listening to this and it's 2022, you are approaching the end of the year. It's the time, if you haven't done this yet, it's the time to pull back out your goals, your original goals that you had set for the year. Okay. Dust those off. Hopefully they're not dusty, but they're sitting right on your desk or right on your wall or right on your phone or all the above. You've got them in the forefront of your mind. I know for me, every single day I look at my goals. It's just part of the rhythm. It's a daily cadence. I keep them in the forefront. So you have to keep your goals in the forefront of your mind. So that has to happen, but we're pulling these back out. We're saying, okay, these are the goals that we want to accomplish for this year. Okay. So you're going to pull those back out and say, where are we in relationship to achieving the goals in relationship to this year? Now, if you've listened to this podcast, then you know that we have an intelligence behind how we set goals. And we're going to get into that today. There's an actual formula. There's an actual strategy, a methodology to doing this intelligently so that when you go and cast your vision to your team, like you said, Dr. Stephen, and when you cast your vision, you cast a quantifiable vision. It's measurable. Your team doesn't roll their eyes in their head, but they actually look at you with clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose, right? And they look at you and they say, that's where we're going. We see it. We want it. We're gonna get it, and then because so people they buy in because you're casting a vision that's quantifiable, that you can see and you can get, and it's based on intelligence data that we've collected from the past. So first step is assess. Let's look at the data. So if you're looking at creating a trend line for your baseline, Doc, you want to look at, okay, what were our numbers in 2021? What were our numbers in 2022? What were our goals originally in 2021 and where do we end up? What were our goals in 2021 and where do we end up in 2022 and where are we? We're going to assess the goals you had set and where you ended up, the outcomes, the actual results from those years, and we're going to create baseline for moving forward. Dr. Stephen, I know you're going to dig into what I'm just kind of throwing it up there, but this is where we're going, and we're going to try to do the best without having pens and papers and all that in front of us. But this is typically an exercise done with Microsoft Excel.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going to encourage you. Even if you're driving, pull over, right? So let's get this right, right? So because in my experience, be very careful how you set your goals because you're going to very likely hit them. Okay, so it's been my experience that you are literally communicating. Everybody on your team is going to be downloading those numbers and those targets into their mind. So do not take this lightly. So as you can tell, I am highly energized. Dr. Pete is highly energized by this conversation because we know this is about going out, buying your own Christmas presents, wrapping them up and sticking them under the tree, right? That's what this is. This is where we're going, right? Right now, I'm plugging the second point into the GPS system right now. That's what we're doing, right? So this is where we're going, right? So if you think like we think, you take this very seriously, right? So, Pete used the T word a couple of times there, and I want to make sure that we highlight what you just said there. These aren't your goals; these are the team's goals, right? So this is a team exercise. This is for the benefit of the team. Remember, we made a promise to you, right, that we were going from laborer to leader, that we were making the ascension from owner-operator to CEO, right? So this is where we have to make the shift from running our business on brute force. You're not taking on the yoke of these goals and saying, okay, so I'm going to pull the plow, right? So you're not just a laborer who is going to wear these goals. You're going to actually compel your team with a vision story. You're going to recruit your team. You're going to create clarity for your team so that they understand what their role is in achieving the goals for this business, right? And they're going to buy into these goals because they're going to know that you just didn't make them up. Okay. This isn't the pull your numbers out of your butt exercise, right? And the truth is everyone on your team knows when you're doing that. Okay. So if you were listening in on our a couple of episodes ago, you heard me say, if you're guessing, you're stressing, right? So we don't guess as CEOs. Okay. So we don't guess because we have data. The owner operator, you can go off your instincts, right? We all have great guts because we're entrepreneurs. You've got a great gut. That's a blessing from God. Like you've got the GPS system, the God's positioning system, the good gut, right? So owner operator, you can get away with just going off of your gut instinct. CEOs, you can't, right? You're leading a team of people. You've got to be 1 part gut, 2 parts data. So we've got to make sure that you have the data. You've got to have the metrics. We're running a data-driven business. And we're going to do data-driven marketing. We're going to do data-driven training. We're going to do data-driven team building. And we're definitely going to do data-driven goal setting. We need everyone on this team to know where these goals came from. Okay. When they know how you've arrived at these goals, then they'll buy into them. Okay. When I say if you don't have your data, you're guessing. And when you're guessing, you're stressing. You're not just stressing yourself out. You're stressing out your team. Okay, because you're going to yoke your team with these KPIs that have targets or goals assigned to them that they're going to have to wear, and they know that those goals came out of thin air. You're guessing, okay, and that's going to stress them out. So I cannot overemphasize this. If you want to be a great leader, you don't guess, right? So in short, we're going to use our assessment process to give you a very simple way to arrive at goals that are very predictable reality, okay, for where you're going to arrive next year, okay? So I love the expression that the best predictor of tomorrow's weather is yesterday's weather. That's a statistical fact, okay? It's a statistical law. So when we look at last year, we're going to assess before we plan, prepare, execute, assess, and repeat, right? The appear process. We're going to assess last quarter. Okay, we can look at last quarter, we can look at last year. Let's look at the last rolling 12 months. And what we can do with looking at that data is we can track a trend, and we can create a trend line that's called your base case scenario. Okay, so we're all familiar with the terms best case scenario and worst case scenario, but the term that most people don't use, which they should, is base case scenario. The base case scenario is looking back at last year. How did we trend over the last 12 months? That is, statistically speaking, the greatest predictor of how we're going to do in the next 12 months. Okay, so if you look back at 2022, and let's pick a KPI, key performance indicator. Let's pick everybody's favorite. Let's talk about top line revenue or collections. Let's say in 2022 you did $1 million at the end of 2021. You went into 2022 and you had just finished 2021 and you did $1 million. And now you look at 2022 and you did $1.25 million. So you did $1,250,000. So if you compare 2022 with 2021, you had a 25% growth. Okay, so top line revenue growth was 25%. 2021, you did $1 million. 2022, you did 1,250,000. That's a 25% growth. Okay, does everybody get that? Right. So when you look at that 25% growth of top line revenue is the greatest predictor of how you're going to grow in 2023. That's called base case scenario. So you strike out a line from 1,250,000 top line revenue to ending 2022, you strike that line out 12 months to the end of 2023, that gets you to 1.56 million. So roughly like it's like 1,562,000 and change, right? So that's your 25% growth in 2023. Dr. Pete, it's just math. And our job is to turn growth in all of our problems into a math problem?
Yeah, so this is, again, I know that for many of you already, you're like, okay, I have some homework to do, right? So that's how you should feel. It's like, okay, so you're going to be calculating this. So Dr. Stephen, let's walk through it. So as you just have done, so when doing this exercise, if you've never done this before, Dr. Stephen, I do think that there is value. Hopefully you have the data again to look at what have the trend lines been, not just over the last 12 months, but potentially over the last 2 to 3 years as well. And to ask yourself the question, because if you have a big year, let's say the example, 25% growth, a trend growth line, that is a significant finding. That's a significant growth percentage. So the question you need to ask yourself is, what were the causes of that growth? What were the primary causes of that growth in order to achieve that over this past year? And then ask yourself the question, if you stay on that trend line, you say, okay, that puts us at, like you said, 1.56 or something in that range. If you keep that trend line going from, let's call it January of 2022 all the way through December of 2023, so that's a total of 24 months, we keep that trend line going. What were the things that happened in 2022 that actually caused your growth percentage at that 25%? What are the things that, from where we are right now, would have to happen? What would have to happen to be able to achieve the goal of hitting a continued trend line of 25% and reach this target, let's call it 1.56, at the end of 2023? And that's where the question comes in from our previous episode, which should be more of a who, not a how question, which is, in order for us to be able to achieve this, right, that we build a team ahead of our growth. So once we set these goals, you have that goal, then you have to reverse engineer that goal back all the way to today. Let's call this January 1, 2023, looking forward, and you build your quarterly goals in relationship to that. So let's say you have a 25% trend from January to December of 2023. You would set then a goal and target for where we want to be by the end of the first quarter, from the first quarter to the second quarter to the third quarter to the fourth quarter. You then break it down into a quarterly target. So once you have your annual goal, top line revenue goal, you then can reverse engineer that back and you can set your goal for this quarter. So Q1, if this is our goal to hit this number by the end of the year, this is where we need to be by the end of Q1 2023. And then you take that number, divide that by 3, or whether you do it by 3 or you simply incrementally say January, February, March, we're going to grow at this trend. Going back to one of the tools we talked about recently, which was the lead flow tracker, and looking at your TAP or your total active patients, knowing what your total active patients are, knowing what your CVA is or case value is, knowing some of these trends, you can actually start to predictably see the growth in your practice month over month throughout that year. So this is going to start at this top line revenue number, but it's going to distill all the way down, thinking through the lead flow worksheet, from total active patients, which is a retention downstream number, all the way up through conversion, all the way up to attraction, and then broken down into your internal, external, and digital. So now this is going to influence the goals that you're going to set for attraction. Okay, how many new patients are we going to attract in first quarter 2023 in order to hit our goal by the end of 2023? We need to have this many new patients coming in to the office. This is how many day ones we have to have. Of that, how many of those day ones are going to go through the process and convert and become an active patient in our practice? You set your goals. Then from those conversions, how many of those people are going to be, stay and remain under chiropractic care? And you can start setting your retention goals. And then from there, we can build the financial goals. So you have to be able to start with the end and then reverse engineer all the way back to the quarter, to the month, and the specific area of the business. Let's call it attraction, conversion, retention, collection. So one of the things that, Doc, I want to give everybody is the goals worksheet. Okay, I'm talking about a framework that we've created that's very simple and organized, a place for you to capture this data in an organized way so that it can then distribute it from the worksheet all the way down to the smallest level, which is down to a scorecard with a KPI or KPIs on it for an individual, where an individual is accountable. This thing is going to go from this top line revenue goal all the way down to an individual's KPI on a scorecard that's going to be reviewed monthly in a monthly meetup and quarterly, and combined with the whole team is going to achieve this goal. It's incredible. So the goals worksheet is what I want to give, Doc. So I'm going to add that as part of the.
I mean, it's perfect. And we say this all the time, Dr. Pete, and we love the fact that you guys take advantage of this. But listen to us when we say this. You want one of us to jump on a call with you and walk you through this with your numbers? We will do that for you. Okay. So there's always a link here. Take advantage of that. Jump on a call with us. We'd love to help you get clarity. Clarity is the greatest predictor of how fast and how far you're going to go, right? So if you're like, okay, this is going to be my year, 2023 is it, this is a great place to start. Get super clarity around what your plan is. So Dr. Pete, we'll put a link down there if they want to jump on a call, and one of us will jump on and walk them through it. We're happy to do it, okay? So we're here for you guys, right? Like, we're not here just to be talking to you through a podcast, right? So we have hundreds and hundreds of our coaching clients that met us through our podcast, and we're psyched about that. We're here for you guys to help you make this a reality. So please take advantage of that. So what you just said there, I want to unpack that a bit further without turning this into an MBA class, right? So the detail in this is staggering, honestly, and it can be overwhelming. So get back to your base case scenario. That's going to get you in the ballpark, right? It's about accuracy, not precision. Okay, so this is going to be an accurate way to predict where you're going to be going in all of these things, not just top line revenue. When you look at, let's talk about attraction. How many new patient leads did we generate on average over the last 12 months? Strike it out. What kind of growth did we see? Strike it out. What was our internal, external, digital new patient leads? Strike it out, right? So you have the data, right? So what happened in 2022? That's the greatest predictor of what will happen in 23. Same thing in conversion. What's our conversion rates? Strike it out. What is, so when you look at things like what is our retention? What's our stick rate? What's our R4 stick rate? R4 reconversion rate? R5 stick rate? R5 reconversion rate? That's how you arrive intelligently at things like our patient visit average, our total patient volume, right? So you can actually work the numbers backwards and reverse engineer total clarity for your team. Gang, this is a team exercise, okay? So CEOs and COOs, you do this together, you're prepared, and you go forward and you present this to your team. You make sure that they understand why we must do this work, why we must grow and increase our reach, why we must constantly be increasing our impact in our community. They have to buy into that. They have to get that. Then they have to see, how are we going to reach those numbers? They have to see, how did you arrive at those numbers? Okay, great. We did this. We did this last year. Why couldn't we do it again next year, right? So they need to understand how you arrived at those numbers. It's like, guys, if we just are staying on track with the level of performance that we did this year, we are going to hit these numbers. Imagine what's going to happen. We're going to blow these numbers away as we get better through the year, through our training and our learnings and our experience, right? So we're going to do even better than this. And that would be best case scenario, right? So base case scenario is how we're going to arrive at the actual goals. Best case scenario is going to be something that we'll shoot for that'll be inspirational for your team. And that's where you can set up your bonus systems accordingly. Because you don't get what you want, you get what you incentivize, right? So now you're able to set up your bonus systems based on best case scenarios, which is when you're delivering above and beyond a base case scenario, right? So Dr. Pete, I love this. Man, if people need help with this, immediately jump on a call with us. Otherwise, do not miss our team building immersion. It's coming up in February. I don't know when you're listening to this. I'm assuming it's before February 4th and 5th. It's going to be in Dallas for our North American audience. And if you're hearing this in Australasia, it's February 24th and 25th in Brisbane, Australia. I'm super stoked because I'm heading over there, bringing a couple of the Remarkables with me from the U.S. team, and we're just going to light them up. So, man, join us at those immersions. There's a link down in the show notes for our registration on our landing page. Let's get this on the docket. Put it on your calendar. You know, if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't happen, right? Get your team excited about it. Let's get these goals captured in the form that's listed down below. There's a link so you can download that form. And let's kick off 2023 with total clarity. Remember, clarity is the accelerant that determines how fast and how far you go.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Now go and be remarkable.